Hello, my name is Madeline and I create knitting content here on YouTube. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this fall decoration. So basically what you need to know before starting this video is how to knit, purl, knit in the round, and cast on. Once you know all those steps, the rest I show you along the way. So to start off, this pumpkin is knit in 2 separate pieces. So first we have this bottom portion of the pumpkin, which is knit in the round. And then second, I'll show you how to make the little stem. So we're going to start off at the bottom, casting on, do all the increases, then decreases, bind off, knit our stem, and then I'm going to show you all the instructions for how to assemble it and get this really good definition in the different sections, because I have a little trick for that. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. Also in the description box down below, you're going to find the full written version of this pattern, as well as all the materials I'm using here in this video. Thanks for watching. Starting off with a knitting needle, I'm going to be using a size US 8 knitting needle. And in this project, we're going to be knitting in the round. So I prefer to knit in the round using magic loop. I have about a 24-inch cord here. If you prefer though, you can definitely use double pointed needles. Now for the yarn, you're going to need about 75 yards of the orange yarn, and then about 15 yards of the brown yarn. And each of these ones I'm using right here are the Vanna's Choice yarn. So this yarn is a medium weight yarn, or a worsted weight. And this colorway, the orange one in particular, is the terracotta color. I can't find my label anymore for the brown one, but I'll be sure to write the specific color name down below. You're also going to need a pair of scissors, 4 stitch markers, a tapestry needle, and then some stuffing for the inside of the pumpkin. All of these materials I'm using here will be linked down below. The main portion of the pumpkin is knit from the bottom to the top, and it's knit in the round. So first I'm going to take my orange yarn, and I'm going to use the long tail cast on method to cast on 12 stitches. Once I've done that, I'm going to join them round. So I prefer to knit using magic loop. So I'm just going to divide my stitches in half between my 2 needles. If you're using double pointed needles, you're just going to want to prepare to join in the round. Now that I'm in the round, this first round is going to be an increase one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the first stitch as if I'm going to knit, leave that stitch on the left needle, and take my right needle and go into the back of the same stitch, put my yarn around and pull through. And now I'm going to slide that stitch off my left needle. So essentially what I just did is I just turned that 1 stitch into 2. And that stitch is called a knit front, knit back. So to show that one more time, I'm going to go into the next stitch on the left needle, just a regular knit stitch wise, pull my yarn through, but I want to leave the stitch on my left needle. I'm going to go into the back of the same stitch, wrap my yarn again, and pull through. Now I can slide that stitch off my left needle. So I'm going to continue going around doing knit front and back into each one of the stitches. So by the time I finish, I'll have 24 stitches total on my needle. The next round is again an increase round, and it's actually done the same way as the previous increase round. So I'm going to knit front and back into every one of the stitches all the way around. And when I finish, I'll have gone from 24 stitches to 48 stitches. After that increase round, I'm again going to work just one plain knit round where I knit all the way across, knitting every stitch. For this next round, we're going to be using the stitch markers. So I've taken out my 4 stitch markers, and we're going to be placing the stitch markers right after each one of these purl stitches. So you can't quite see it just from looking at the pumpkin, but inside of each one of these fridges, there's a purl stitch. I'm going to divide my pumpkin into 6 sections. Because I use magic loop, I'm just going to put 2 stitch markers on the front, 2 stitch markers on the back, and that way it'll end up being 6 total because I have the 2 sides as kind of like my other stitch markers. So the repeat is knit 1, and then the pattern says make 1. So you can make 1 right or make 1 left. I typically just keep on using make 1 left all throughout the pattern, mainly because, once again, all these make 1s, they're kind of within the ridges, so you don't really see them. So I think it's more straightforward to just use one type of increase. So the way you do a make 1 left is you take your left hand needle and you put it into the bar in between the stitch you just worked and the one you're about to work, from front to back, and then you knit into the back of that loop. So that's the make 1. Now I'm going to knit 5. Again, I'm going to make 1, so I'm going to use a make 1 left again. I'm going to take my left needle from front to back underneath the bar, then knit into the back of that stitch. After the make 1, I'm going to knit 1 and then purl 1. After I do the purl 1, I'm going to place my stitch marker. So to show that repeat one more time, it's knit 1, make 1, knit 5, make 1 again, knit 1, and then purl 1. And now I'm going to place the next stitch marker. So I'm going to continue that repeat 4 more times across the rest of the round, placing my stitch markers as I go. After the increase round where I placed my stitch markers, the next round I'm going to repeat where I just knit until 1 stitch before each stitch marker, and that last stitch I'm going to purl. So I'm going to knit across, then purl that last stitch, again knit across until there's 1 more remaining, purl that stitch, and then again, because I'm using magic loop, I'm going to have to purl the last stitch at each of these sides. The next increase round is really similar to the previous increase round, just instead of 5 stitches in the middle, we now have 7. So in between each set of stitch markers, I'm going to knit 1, make 1, knit 7, make 1 again, knit 1, and then purl the last one. And now I'm going to repeat that all the way across the round. Again, after that increase round, I'm going to work another round where I just knit until 1 stitch before each marker and then purl that stitch. Repeat that all the way around. I'm now going to do another increase round where I do the knit 1, make 1, knit 9, make 1, knit 1, purl, and repeat all the way around. And then after that, I'm going to do another round where I just knit and then purl before each stitch marker. Then again after that, I'm going to do another increase round where I do the knit, make one, knit 11, make one, knit, purl. And then I'll come back and show you what the next step is there. And if you want to see any of these increased rounds written out, down in the description box below, you'll find the pattern where it describes each of these increased rounds that I'm talking about. I've now finished all my increases, so I'm ready to begin the center portion of the pumpkin. In this portion, we don't have any increases or decreases. So what this whole portion of the pumpkin consists of is just repeating the round where you knit all the way until one stitch before the stitch marker and then purl that stitch all the way across the round. And we're just repeating that round over and over again. So I'm gonna begin repeating that one, and I'm gonna repeat it a total of 14 times. I've now finished my 14 rounds, and how I count the 14 rounds, just in case you wanna double check that you've done all of them, is I first find one of the purl columns, and then next to it, you'll see your increases. So that's each one of these little, they look almost like twisted stitches and little bars. So look for your topmost one of those. So for me, the topmost increase is this little twisted bar right here. So this is the bar I picked up, and then I knit into that bar. So these two together are my make one. So I'm gonna start counting above those. So I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then right up here on the needle is my 14th round. So that's just how I count my rows. I'm now ready to start decreasing. So the decreases at the top of the pumpkin are symmetric to the increases we did at the bottom. So to start, I'm going to do a knit one, and then I'm going to do a left leaning decrease. So a left leaning decrease is a slip, slip, knit. So I'm going to take my right needle, put it into the first stitch on my left needle as if I'm going to knit, but just slide it over. Slide the next stitch over as well as if I'm going to knit it. Now take your left needle point and put it in front of your right needle point through both those stitches. So now basically I have my right needle behind my left needle. Now just wrap your yarn around as if you're going to knit and pull through. So that's a slip, slip, knit. I'm going to knit 9. Now I'm going to work a knit 2 together. A knit 2 together is where you take your right needle point, you put it into the next 2 stitches on the left needle as if you're going to knit. So I go in from front to back, going through both of those stitches, wrap my yarn around and pull through. Gonna knit 1 more and then purl 1. So to just show you those 2 steps one more time, I'm just gonna slip my marker. So I knit 1, do a slip, slip, knit. So I slide the first stitch knitwise onto my right needle, slide the second stitch knitwise onto my right needle, put the left needle point into both of those stitches and in front of my right needle, wrap the yarn around and pull through, knit 9, then work a knit 2 together. I'm going to take my right needle point into 2 stitches as if I'm going to knit them, wrap the yarn around and pull through. Oop, caught a little extra yarn there. Knit 1 and purl 1. And I'm going to continue doing this repeat all the way around the round. After the decrease round, I'm again going to go back to the round where I just knit until 1 stitch before the stitch marker and purl that stitch. Repeat that all the way across the round. I now have 48 stitches on my needles, and I'm ready to begin the next set of decreases. So for these decreases, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knit one full round where I knit every set of 2 stitches together. So I'm going to be going from 48 stitches down to 24 stitches. And as you're going around too, you can take off the stitch markers. There are my 24 stitches. So now I'm just going to knit one full round. The final round I'm going to work is to once again knit 2 together all the way across the round. And once I finish this round, I'll have gone from 24 stitches down to 12. For this next step, I'm going to be using my scissors and tapestry needle. And first, I'm just going to cut my yarn, leaving about a 12-inch tail, and thread my tapestry needle. Now I'm just going to take my tapestry needle. I find it's easier to do when it's on the cord because then there's more room. And I'm going to go through each one of the stitches. So this is the last stitch that I knit basically back over here that the tail is coming out of. So I'm going to go into the next one that's kind of across the needle from it. So there's that side. And you don't want to pull too tight on this either. You want to leave plenty of space. Now I'm going to turn and go through the other side. And again, leave plenty of room. Now I'm going to slide my work off of my needles. And you won't need your knitting needles again until you get to the stem. And I just want to stretch it out a little bit just so that I make sure that I can still stuff it through there. And I'm also going to take my yarn off my tapestry needle now. The stem is knit in the round, and we start up here at the top and then knit down and increase out so we get this little ruffle effect. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take my dark brown yarn, and I'm going to use the long tail cast on method and cast on 8 stitches. Once you've cast on the 8 stitches, you're going to join in the round. So I use magic loop. And so you can place a stitch marker here at the beginning of the round if you want to. I just remember based off of where my tail is. And I'm going to knit in the round for 1.5 inches. I just finished working for 1.5 inches, and now I'm going to work the first increase round. So this first increase round repeats 3 things over and over again. So first I'm going to knit 1. Then it says make 1. So you're going to want to increase 1 stitch. I'm going to do that by doing a make 1 left. So I'm going to take my left needle, put it underneath the bar in between the 2 stitches, and then knit into the back of that stitch. And then I'm going to knit 1 again. So I'm going to repeat that knit 1, make 1, knit 1, all the way across the round. I now have a total of 12 stitches on my needle. So next round I'm going to work, I'm just going to knit all the way around the round. I now have another increase round next. So in this round, I'm going to knit the first stitch, then make 1 next. So I did a make 1 left. Now again, I'm going to repeat that again. So I'm going to knit 1 and then make 1. And I'm going to continue repeating that all the way across the round. So by the time I finish, I should have gone from 12 stitches to 24 stitches. And when you get to a corner on magic loop, you increase the same way, just now kind of like you have your bar instead of your needle. So I'm just going to again take my needle into that bar in between the front and the back, from front to back, and then knit into the back of that bar. Now I'm going to continue increasing on the other side. And again, when you get to that last stitch, you still have to increase after it. So now I'm going to look for the bar in between the back and the front of my work and pick that up with my left needle and knit into the back of it. After completing that increase round, I now have 24 stitches on my needle, and I'm just going to work one plain knit round. For the final increase round, I'm again going to work the repeat where I knit one stitch and then increase one stitch. So once I finish this round, I'll have gone from 24 stitches to 48 stitches on my needles. I now have the 48 stitches on my needles, so my final step for the stem is going to be to cast off. To do that, I'm going to knit the first stitch, and then the second stitch. And now I'm going to take the first stitch that's on my right hand needle, put the left needle into it, and then pass it up over the second stitch and off my needle. So I just decrease one stitch. Now I want to knit the next stitch for my left hand needle. And again, take that first stitch that's on my right hand needle, pass it up, over, and off the needle. And I'm going to continue repeating, knitting one, taking the first stitch on the right needle, and passing it up, over, and off, until I get all the way around the round, and I just have one loop left on my right needle. I now just have that final stitch left on my right needle. So I'm going to cut my working yarn, leaving about an 8-inch tail. And then I just tug on the needle to make the loop a little bit bigger. And I'm going to thread that tail through the loop. So here's the finished stem, and I'm going to show you how to make it curve a little bit in the next section, which will be the assembly.